The air in the workshop smells of marine-grade oil, salt, and the faint, sweet scent of sawdust from a recent repair. Elias Vance holds a micrometer in his right hand. Its steel body is cool against his calloused skin. He measures the tolerance of a piston ring, his knuckles scarred from 1,000 similar movements. The digital readout glows with green numbers. He does not smile, but the tension in his shoulders releases by a fraction of an inch. It is correct. A small voice cuts through the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights. "Is it done, Papa?" Elias turns. His daughter Lily sits on a tall stool, legs swinging, a crayon clutched in her fist. She is 6 years old, with his dark hair and her mother's wide, curious eyes. A large piece of butcher paper is spread before her, covered in swirling shapes of blue and green. A boat, maybe, or a whale. "Almost little bird," he says. His voice is low, a rumble that seems to vibrate from the concrete floor. He wipes the micrometer with a soft cloth and places it back into its velvet-lined case. He does not rush the movement. Each tool has its place. Each action has its rhythm. This is the world he has built for them since his wife passed. A small, orderly world of gears and gaskets, of quiet work and the steady presence of his daughter. He picks up a torque wrench. Its handle is worn smooth in the exact shape of his grip. Lily hums a tuneless song, the crayon scratching a soft, waxy rhythm against the paper. This is their life. It is enough. Annalise Croft stands on the polished teak deck of the new Odyssey model. Her suit is a severe cut of charcoal grey, the fabric sharp and unyielding against the soft sea breeze. She hates these launch events. The flash of cameras, the false smiles, the clinking of champagne glasses. It all feels like a performance. Her father loved this part. He would move through the crowd, a giant of a man with a laugh that could carry across the water. He knew every bolt, every wire, every curve of the hull. Annalise knows the balance sheets. She knows the profit margins and the supply chain logistics. She does not know the soul of the machines her company builds. Not yet. Marcus Thorne, her chief operating officer, leans in close. His cologne is expensive and cloying. "The press is loving it, Annalise," he murmurs, his smile a flash of white. "Your father would be proud." The mention of her father is a small, sharp stone in her shoe. Marcus uses it often. He was her father's right hand for 2 decades, and now he guides her, the inheritor, through the unfamiliar territory of her own company. "Is the engine ready for the demonstration?" she asks, her tone clipped. She does not want to talk about her father's pride. She wants to talk about performance metrics. "Almost," Marcus says, his smile tightening. "Just a final diagnostic. We had to bring in a local mechanic for a last-minute calibration. The lead engineer is out with the flu." He gestures toward the open engine hatch. A man in simple, grease-stained coveralls is bent over the massive V12 engine block. He moves with a quiet, efficient grace. Annalise watches him for a moment. There is a competence in his posture that is both reassuring and, for some reason, irritating. "A local mechanic?" she repeats, an edge of disbelief in her voice. "On our flagship engine?" "A necessary evil," Marcus says smoothly. "He came recommended for this specific vintage of turbocharger. Apparently, he's the only one in the region who still knows how to service them properly. A bit of a relic." The word relic hangs in the air. Annalise walks toward the engine bay, her heels clicking sharply on the deck. The man does not look up. He is focused on his task, his hands moving with an unhurried precision that she finds herself envying. "Is there a problem?" she asks. The question is a blade. The man finishes tightening a hose clamp before he slowly straightens up. He turns to face her. His eyes are a steady, clear grey. They hold her gaze without deference, but also without challenge. It is Elias Vance. He simply looks at her. No problem, he says. His voice is calm, just ensuring the fuel pressure is stable under load. Marcus steps up behind Annalise. Vance, he says, his tone dripping with a false, patronizing warmth. Good of you to come out. Still tinkering with old motors, I see. Elias's gaze shifts to Marcus for a single, unreadable second before returning to Annalise. He does not acknowledge the jibe. He does not defend his work. He does not say that he designed the core of this very engine system 15 years ago, before Marcus had him pushed out. Annalise feels a flicker of something, annoyance, confusion. She is the one in charge. His quiet composure feels like a subtle form of defiance. Your work is finished? She asks. It is, Elias confirms. He begins wiping his hands on a clean rag. Then you can send your invoice to accounting, she says, the words colder than she intends. We won't be needing your services further. All future calibrations will be handled by our internal engineering team. It is a dismissal. It is public. The cluster of journalists nearby quiets, their attention shifting from the gleaming yacht to the small, tense drama unfolding by the engine. Marcus smirks, a brief triumphant flash that he quickly hides. Elias Vance looks at her. For a long count of 3 seconds, he just looks. He sees a young woman drowning in a suit that is too big for her, her grief a brittle armor. He sees the ghost of her father, a good man, standing behind her. He sees the snake, Marcus, whispering in her ear. He does not say any of this. He does not argue. He does not mention the promise he made to her father. He simply gives a short, single nod. Then he turns, gathers his small, worn leather tool bag, and walks down the gangplank. He does not look back. The silence he leaves behind is heavier than any argument. Annalise watches him go, the back of his coveralls straight and proud. A strange, bitter taste fills her mouth, like ash. She tells herself it is victory. It does not feel like victory. Later that night, Annalise sits in the back of her town car. The city lights smear across the rain-slicked windows. The demonstration was a success. The engine performed flawlessly. Marcus was ecstatic. The board will be pleased. So why can she not shake the image of the mechanic's eyes? That quiet, steady gaze. The way he accepted her dismissal without a word. There was no anger in his expression, no shame. There was something that looked like patience. Or perhaps pity. The thought is infuriating. She replays the scene, her own sharp, commanding voice. Marcus's smug satisfaction. The mechanic's simple, devastating nod. He had made her feel small. Him, in his greasy coveralls, had somehow diminished her. The CEO in her perfectly tailored suit. It makes no sense. Is everything all right, Miss Croft? The driver asks, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. The temperature, she says, deflecting, it's too warm in here. It is not too warm. She pulls her phone from her purse, intending to review the quarterly projections. Instead, she types a name into the search bar. Elias Vance. There is not much. A business listing for Vance Marine and Auto. A few glowing reviews on a local forum for his work on vintage cars and difficult boat engines. One review says, he doesn't just fix things, he understands them. She closes the phone. Understanding, it is the one thing she feels she truly lacks. She understands numbers, but she does not understand her father's legacy. She does not understand the machines he loved. And she certainly does not understand the quiet mechanic who looked at her as if he knew her better than she knew herself. The unease lingers for days. It is a low hum beneath the surface of her busy schedule, a dissonant note in the symphony of meetings and conference calls. A week later, she is driving back from a fruitless negotiation with a supplier in a neighboring state. The highway stretches out, a grey ribbon under a grey sky. She is alone, having given her driver the day off. She likes the feeling of control, the wheel in her hands. Then the car shudders. A warning light flashes on the dashboard, a furious, angry red. The engine sputters, coughs, and dies. She coasts to a stop on the shoulder, the sudden silence deafening. Rain begins to fall, fat drops splattering against the windshield. She tries the ignition. Nothing. She tries again. A pathetic click is the only response. She is in a brand new, top-of-the-line luxury sedan, and she is stranded. The irony is not lost on her. She pulls out her phone. No signal. Of course. She rests her forehead against the cool leather of the steering wheel and closes her eyes. For the first time since her father's funeral, she feels the sting of tears. She does not let them fall. After a long moment, she takes a breath, puts on her hazard lights, and stares out at the rain. A pair of headlights appears in her rearview mirror, slowing down. A battered-looking tow truck pulls up behind her, the driver's side door opens, and a figure in a heavy rain slicker gets out. The figure walks toward her window. She rolls it down a few inches. It is him. Elias Vance pushes back the hood of his slicker. Rain drips from his hair. He does not look surprised to see her. "Trouble?" he asks. His voice is the same low rumble she remembers. "The engine just died," she says, the words clipped and formal. She is a CEO on the side of the road. He is a mechanic. The power dynamic should be clear. Somehow it is not. "Pop the hood," he says. It is not a request. She hesitates for a second, then pulls the latch. He works in the pouring rain, his movements just as efficient and unhurried as they were on the deck of the Odyssey. He does not seem to mind the weather. He seems a part of it, as steady and persistent as the downpour itself. Annalise watches him from the dry warmth of her car. He has a small flashlight clenched in his teeth. He checks the battery terminals. He inspects a series of fuses. His hands, which she knows are scarred and calloused, move with surprising delicacy among the complex wiring. After 5 minutes, he comes back to her window. "It's the alternator," he says, "completely shot. Can you fix it?" "Not here," he says. "I can tow you to my shop. It's only a few miles down the road." She looks at his old, rusty tow truck. She looks at her pristine, 6-figure sedan. She has no other options. "Fine," she says. The ride to his shop is silent. The cab of the truck smells like his workshop, oil and metal and something else, something clean, like soap. The rhythmic slap of the windshield wipers is the only sound. He does not ask her what happened at the launch event. He does not mention her public dismissal of him. He just drives. His workshop is larger inside than it looks from the road. It is meticulously organized. Tools hang on pegboards in perfect, shadowy outlines. Engine blocks rest on stands, draped in canvas covers like sleeping giants. In a corner, under a bright, clean light, is a small table and 2 chairs. On the table is a half-finished drawing of a boat. Or a whale. A little girl is asleep on a cot nearby, a worn teddy bear tucked under her arm. "Lily," Elias moves quietly, placing a thick wool blanket over his daughter. He does not wake her. He turns to Annalise. "I'll need to order the part. It won't be here until morning," he says. "I can call you a car." "Thank you," she says. The words feel inadequate. As he turns to his office phone, the little girl stirs. She sits up, rubbing her eyes. "Papa?" she says, her voice thick with sleep. She sees Annalise standing in the middle of the garage. Her eyes, so like her mother's, are wide and perceptive. She looks at Annalise's expensive suit, now slightly damp and rumpled. She looks at her stern, tired face. Then she looks at her father. "Papa," Lily says, her voice clear and certain. "Is that the sad lady from the boat?" The question hangs in the air, simple and devastating. Elias freezes, his hand on the phone. Annalise feels the blood drain from her face. Sad lady. Not mean. Not powerful. Sad, Elias turns slowly. He kneels down in front of his daughter. "Lily," he says softly, "that wasn't a kind thing to say. But it's true." The child insists, her brow furrowed with the profound logic of the very young. Her eyes were crinkly, like when you miss Mama. Silence. A thick, profound silence that absorbs the hum of the lights, the drip of the rain outside, the very air in the room. Annalise stands rooted to the spot, stripped bare by the observation of a 6-year-old. She is not a CEO. She is not the inheritor of a corporate empire. She is just a sad lady with crinkly eyes. Elias does not look at Annalise. He keeps his focus on his daughter, his expression gentle. "Even if something is true," he says, "we must be careful how our words make other people feel." He stands and finally turns to Annalise. His grey eyes hold no judgment. Only a quiet, weary understanding. "I'll call that car for you," he says as if nothing has happened. Annalise simply nods, unable to form a word. The drive home in the hired car is a blur. The sad lady from the boat. The phrase echoes in her mind, a relentless, quiet drumbeat. It is the key to a lock she did not even know existed. The next morning, Annalise sits at her vast, empty desk. She has the performance report for the Odyssey demonstration in front of her. It is glowing. Marcus has highlighted the key metrics in yellow. Engine output 5% above projections. Fuel efficiency exceeds benchmark by 8%. 0 vibrational anomalies. It is perfect. Too perfect. She remembers Marcus's words, a bit of a relic. She remembers Elias's hands, moving with such understanding over the engine. She finds the service log for the demonstration engine. The entry for the day of the launch is brief. Final calibration performed by external contractor E. Vance, authorized by M. Thorne. There is a note appended by Marcus. Contractor corrected a minor fuel pressure fluctuation. Issue resolved. Minor, she pulls up the internal engineering logs from the days leading up to the launch. She scrolls back. And there it is, a frantic series of entries from the lead engineer, the one who was supposedly out with the flu. Cascade failure in the turbocharger manifold. Pressure readings are erratic, cannot stabilize. Simulation predicts catastrophic failure at 80% throttle. Thorne is insisting we proceed. He says he has a fix. The last entry is time-stamped the evening before the launch. The engineer was not sick. He was sidelined. Marcus lied. It was not a minor fluctuation. It was a critical failure. And Elias Vance, the relic, was the one who fixed it. The man she publicly humiliated saved her flagship product from exploding in front of the world's press. A cold dread, sharp and clean, washes over her. What else has Marcus lied about? She starts digging. She needs more than digital logs. She needs history. She needs a human source. The name comes to her in a flash. Sam Jones. Her father's first head of engineering. He retired 5 years ago, but her father still spoke of him with a reverence reserved for true masters of the craft. Sam lives in a small house by the water, 20 miles up the coast. Annalise drives there herself in a modest company sedan. She finds him in his garage, which looks like a smaller, more cluttered version of Elias Vance's workshop. He is an old man with kind eyes and hands permanently stained with the ghost of engine grease. He is surprised to see her. "Annalise," he says, wiping a hand on his overalls. To what do I owe the honor? Sam, she begins, deciding directness is the only way. I need to ask you about a man named Elias Vance. Sam's friendly expression becomes guarded. He stops wiping his hands and looks at her, really looks at her, for a long moment. He is testing her. Why are you asking about Eli? He asks, his voice neutral. My father respected you, she says, appealing to his loyalty. He said you were the most honest man he knew. I need some of that honesty right now. I think I've made a terrible mistake. That seems to be the right answer. The guard in Sam's eyes lowers slightly. He gestures to a pair of weathered wooden chairs. Sit, he says. They sit in the garage, surrounded by the smell of old engines and salt air. Your father and I hired Eli straight out of university, Sam begins. He wasn't like the other engineers. They saw numbers and formulas. Eli saw music. He could listen to an engine and tell you which valve was thinking about sticking, just from the sound. Annalise listens, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. He was a prodigy, Sam continues. He designed the entire architecture for the Trident V12 series when he was just 26 years old. That engine is still the bedrock of your company's profits. The Odyssey runs on a Trident V12. What happened? Annalise asks, her voice barely a whisper. Why did he leave? He didn't leave, Sam says, his voice hardening. He was pushed by Marcus Thorne. The name lands like a stone. Marcus saw him as a threat, Sam explains. Eli had your father's ear. He had ideas, big, revolutionary ideas. Marcus was all about cutting costs and maximizing quarterly returns. He couldn't stand that your father listened to this young kid who cared more about perfection than profit. So Marcus got him fired? Worse, Sam says, his eyes dark with memory. There was a prototype, a new kind of hybrid diesel-electric engine. The Helios project. It was Eli's design, revolutionary. It would have put Croft Marine 20 years ahead of everyone. On the final test run, something went wrong. A small fire. Marcus seized the opportunity. He falsified the data, made it look like Eli's design was fundamentally flawed, dangerous even. He convinced the board it was a catastrophic failure and a waste of money. Sam leans forward, his expression intense. It wasn't. It was sabotage, a fuel line fitting. Marcus switched it out for a cheaper, substandard part. I found the original in a scrap bin later, but by then it was too late. Marcus had convinced your father that Eli was reckless. He was out. Annalise feels sick. Why didn't my father do something? Why didn't Elias fight it? Eli made a promise to your father, Sam says quietly. Your mother had just gotten sick. Your father was distracted, grieving. The board was pressuring him. Marcus had him cornered. To avoid a scandal that could have hurt the company your father had built from nothing, Eli agreed to walk away quietly. He promised he would never speak of it, so long as your father kept the Helios prototype safe. Your dad gave his word. A promise. The quiet mechanic's silence was not weakness. It was honor. Thank you, Sam, Annalise says, standing up. Her legs feel unsteady. You've given me what I needed. She knows what she has to do. That evening, she drives not to her sterile modern apartment, but to Elias Vance's workshop. She does not call first. She parks across the street and just watches for a while. The lights are on. Through the large garage door window, she can see him working. Lily is there, at her little table, carefully coloring. At one point, Elias stops his work, walks over, and kneels beside his daughter. He points to something on her drawing, and they both laugh. The sound does not reach her, but she can see it in the way his shoulders shake, in the bright, unguarded joy on Lily's face. It is a world complete in itself, a world built on integrity and love, a fortress against the likes of Marcus Thorne. She finally gets out of the car and walks to the door. She needs the final piece. The totem. Her father's office at the main plant has been left untouched since his death, a shrine she has been unable to face. Now, she enters it with a purpose. It smells of him, leather, pipe tobacco, and the faint metallic tang of industry. She runs her hand over his massive oak desk. Sam's words echo in her mind. So long as your father kept the Helios prototype safe. Safe where? Her eyes scan the room. Bookshelves filled with engineering manuals, framed photos of yachts, a picture of her, aged 10, on her father's shoulders. Behind a framed architectural drawing of the first Croft factory, she feels a slight irregularity in the wall. A hidden safe. Her father's birthday. She tries the combination. The lock clicks open. Inside is not money or stock certificates. It is a single, heavy, leather-bound ledger and a sealed manila envelope. She opens the ledger. It is the complete design specification for the Helios project. Page after page of elegant, complex drawings and calculations. On the title page, in her father's bold script, are two names. Lead designer, Elias Vance. Project supervisor, Robert Croft. Her father's name is second. He had given Elias top billing. Her hands are trembling as she opens the envelope. Inside is a single-page letter, handwritten by her father, and a small brass fuel line fitting, tagged and dated. The letter is addressed to her. My dearest Annalise, if you are reading this, it means I am gone, and you have started asking the right questions. I have made many mistakes in my life, but my greatest failure of character was the day I allowed a good man to be sacrificed for the sake of expediency. I let Marcus Thorne poison me against Elias Vance, the most gifted engineer I have ever known. Marcus sabotaged the Helios project. This brass fitting is the proof. I discovered his treachery too late, after I had already broken Eli's career and my own word. Eli, in his infinite grace, made me a promise. He would remain silent to protect the company, to protect me from my own weakness. In return, I gave him my word I would protect his work. I have kept the prototype engine locked away in Storage Unit 7B at the old marina. The key is taped to the back of this letter. I was a coward. I was afraid to confront Marcus and admit my own failing. I tell myself I did it to protect the company, to protect you. But that is just another lie. Do not make my mistake. Trust the quiet man. Trust the work. The truth is in the work. Your loving father, Robert, the trinity of truths lands, one after another. The full extent of Marcus's treachery. Her father's deep, abiding respect for Elias, and the staggering weight of Elias's noble, silent sacrifice. Annalise sinks into her father's chair, the letter clutched in her hand. The sad lady from the boat. Lily was right. She has been sad for a very long time. The drive to Elias Vance's workshop is different this time. There is no hesitation. She pulls up and gets out of the car before the engine is even fully off. He is standing outside the open garage door, as if he were expecting her. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across the asphalt. Annalise, he says. It is the first time he has used her name. I know, she says, her voice thick. I know everything. She holds out the letter. He does not take it. You didn't have to, he says, his gaze fixed on her face. Yes, I did, she insists. I'm so sorry, Elias, for what I said on the boat, for all of it. I was arrogant, and I was blind. He looks at her, and for the first time she sees a flicker of the immense weariness he must carry. Why? She asks, the question that has been haunting her. Why didn't you say anything? Why did you let me humiliate you like that? He is silent for a long moment, the sounds of the evening, crickets, a distant train, filling the space between them. "Because you are Robert Croft's daughter," he says finally. "And you were grieving. You didn't know who I was. You only knew what Marcus Thorne wanted you to know." He looks past her, toward the horizon, and "because I made your father a promise." The simplicity of it, the unbreakable strength of it, leaves her breathless. The workshop door creaks open. Lily stands there, holding 2 steaming mugs. She walks carefully, her small face a mask of concentration. She stops in front of Annalise. "Papa says, guests get hot chocolate," she says, holding up one of the mugs. It has a cartoon whale on it. Annalise looks from the child's earnest face to Elias's quiet gaze. Her eyes sting. She slowly reaches out and takes the warm mug. The ceramic is a solid, comforting weight in her hands. "Thank you, Lily," she says, her voice cracking. The little girl gives a solemn nod, then turns and hands the other mug to her father. She slips her small hand into his. Annalise stands there, holding the cup of cocoa, accepted into their small, private world. This, she realizes, is what strength looks like. Marcus is planning to sell the Trident V12 tooling and designs to a competitor, Annalise says. They are standing in storage unit 7B. It is cold and smells of dust and time. Under a heavy canvas tarp sits the Helios prototype, a hulking mass of steel and innovation. He's convinced the board it's an obsolete platform, she continues, her voice sharp with anger. He says we need to pivot to cheaper, mass-produced engines to compete. Elias runs a hand over the dusty tarp, his touch gentle, reverent. He's not wrong that the Trident is old, Elias says. But he's wrong about the solution. He pulls back the canvas. The Helios engine is beautiful, a piece of industrial sculpture. This is the solution, he says. Can it work? Annalise asks. After all this time. The design is sound, Elias says, his eyes scanning every line and connection. It needs to be restored. Recalibrated, the electronics will be ancient. But the core is good. Then that's what we'll do, Annalise declares. We will restore it, and we will show them what my father, what you, created. It becomes their secret project, their alliance forged in grease and purpose. Annalise clears her schedule. She spends her days not in the boardroom, but in the storage unit. She learns the names of tools. She learns to read a wiring diagram. She hands wrenches to Elias, her manicured nails chipping and breaking. She does not care. She watches him work, mesmerized by the deep, instinctual knowledge in his hands. He explains things to her, not as a teacher to a student, but as one collaborator to another. The heat exchanger needs to be redesigned, he says one afternoon, pointing to a series of pipes. The alloys we have now are 30% more efficient. We can make it smaller, lighter. She listens. She learns. She sees the music. Lily becomes a regular visitor, bringing them sandwiches and juice boxes. She sits and draws, providing a quiet, steadying presence to their urgent work. One evening, as they are packing up, Annalise notices a deep gash on Elias's forearm. You're hurt, she says, her voice filled with concern. It's nothing, he says, starting to wipe it with an oily rag. Stop, she says, her tone firm. She takes a first aid kit from her car and, with surprisingly steady hands, cleans and bandages the wound. Her fingers are gentle against his skin. He does not pull away. They stand there for a moment, in the dim light of the storage unit, the silence charged with a new, unspoken intimacy. After 3 weeks of relentless work, it is done. The Helios engine rests on a test stand, cleaned and restored, gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. It's ready, Elias says. Annalise nods, her heart pounding. I've called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning, she says, to vote on Marcus's proposal to sell the Trident assets. The boardroom is a cold, sterile space of glass and steel. The board members, grey-faced men and women, sit around the long table, their expressions impatient. Marcus Thorne stands at the head of the table, exuding confidence. He delivers a slick presentation filled with charts and projections, arguing for the sale of the legacy assets. It is time for Croft Marine to look to the future, he concludes, not to be anchored by the past. Annalise stands up. She is calm, methodical, in complete command. "Thank you, Marcus," she says, her voice cool and even. "You are right. We should look to the future, a future you have done everything in your power to prevent." A murmur runs through the room. Marcus's smile falters. "Annalise, what is this?" he asks, trying to maintain his composure. "This," she says, pressing a button on a remote, "is the past." The large screen behind her, which had been showing Marcus's financial charts, flickers to life. It shows a live feed from the test bay downstairs. The Helios engine sits on its stand. "Some of you may remember the Helios project," Annalise says, her eyes sweeping across the board members. "A project Mr. Thorne convinced this board was a catastrophic failure 15 years ago." She continues, her voice ringing with clarity and conviction. She lays out the evidence, piece by piece. The engineer's logs, the service records from the Odyssey, the story of the sabotage, the falsified data. She places a copy of her father's letter on the table in front of each board member. Finally, she holds up the small tagged brass fitting. "This is the part Mr. Thorne used to sabotage the engine," she says, "to ruin a man's career and to set this company on a course of stagnation, all for his own personal gain." The color has drained from Marcus's face. He is staring at her, his expression a mixture of shock and pure hatred. "This is absurd," he sputters. "She's hysterical. This is a fabrication." "Is it?" Annalise asks softly. The main door to the boardroom opens. Elias Vance walks in. He is wearing clean work clothes, but he makes no attempt to look like one of them. He does not speak. He simply walks to the back of the room and stands there, his arms crossed, his grey eyes fixed on Marcus Thorne. His presence is a physical testament to the truth. It is the final, crushing weight on the scales of justice. And this, Annalise says, turning back to the screen, is the future. On the monitor, Sam Jones gives a thumbs up to the camera and presses a button on the control panel. The Helios engine whirs to life. There is no smoke, no fire, just a low, powerful hum, a sound of perfectly balanced, immense potential. The digital readouts appear on the screen, displaying power, efficiency, and emissions levels that are light years ahead of anything the competition has. It is not a failure. It is a masterpiece. A dead silence fills the boardroom. Marcus Thorne looks from the screen to Elias, then to Annalise. He knows he is finished. "I call for a vote," Annalise says, her voice cutting through the silence. "All in favor of terminating the employment of Marcus Thorne for cause, effective immediately, and initiating legal proceedings for corporate sabotage and fraud." Every hand goes up. Unanimous, security guards enter the room and flank a pale, trembling Marcus. As they lead him away, his eyes meet Elias's for one last time. There is no triumph in Elias's gaze, only a profound, quiet stillness. The vanquishing is complete. The meeting adjourns. The board members file out, some stopping to offer Annalise quiet words of support, their respect for her newfound and absolute. Soon only she and Elias are left in the vast, silent room. She walks toward him. They do not speak. They walk together out of the boardroom and down the long, empty hallway. Their footsteps echo in the quiet space. It is a new rhythm, a new equality. They walk to the parking garage, the cool, damp air a relief after the tension of the meeting. They stop beside her car. "What will you do now?" she asks. "I have a carburetor to rebuild on a 1968 speedboat," he says, a faint, rare smile touching his lips. "And Lily has a drawing of a narwhal she wants to finish." He is affirming his commitment to his world. He is not asking for a job, for a title, for a reward. He is Elias Vance, the man who fixes things, the man who is a father. Annalise understands. She will not try to pull him into her world of boardrooms and balance sheets. She will have to find a way to join him in his. "I'm selling my apartment in the city," she says, the decision forming as she speaks the words. "I'm looking for a house, something smaller, near the water, out here." He just looks at her, his grey eyes searching her face. He sees the truth there. She reaches into the back seat of her car and pulls out a dark, worn leather jacket. It is her father's. It smells faintly of pipe tobacco and the sea. "It's supposed to get cold tonight," she says, holding it out to him. "You should have this. It is not a payment. It is not a gift of gratitude. It is a symbol. A piece of her father's legacy, the best part of it, passed from her to him." He hesitates for a moment, then takes it. He slips it on. It fits perfectly. He zips it up, his calloused fingers brushing against the worn leather. "Thank you," he says. The two words are filled with a meaning that has nothing to do with the jacket. He turns and walks toward his old truck without another word. Annalise watches him go, a quiet, hopeful ache in her chest. 3 months later, the world is a different place. Croft Marine is resurgent, the announcement of the new Helios engine series sending shockwaves through the industry. Annalise is a different CEO. She spends as much time on the factory floor as she does in the executive suite. She knows the names of the engineers. She listens to the music of the machines. Elias is the new, reluctant head of the Advanced Projects Division, a title he finds absurd. He insisted on keeping his old workshop, and his office at the plant is a corner of the main testing bay, not a room on the top floor. He works on his own terms. Annalise bought a small, unassuming house on the water, a few miles from his. It has a porch and a small dock. On a bright, windswept Saturday afternoon, the three of them stand on that dock. Annalise, in jeans and a simple sweater. Elias, in his father-in-law's leather jacket. And Lily, squeezed between them, holding both of their hands. Out on the water, a sleek prototype speedboat, powered by the first production Helios engine, is running sea trials. It cuts through the waves, impossibly fast, impossibly quiet. It is their shared success, a physical manifestation of their journey. Lily jumps up and down, her pigtails flying. It's winning. She shouts, though there is no race. Annalise and Elias share a look over the top of her head. A real smile, warm and genuine, blossoms on Annalise's face. Elias returns it with a small, quiet one of his own. The boat banks a turn and heads back toward the shore. The triumvirate, the new, unspoken family, watches it come. Later, as dusk settles, the sky turns a bruised purple and orange. Lily is asleep inside the house. The air is cool and smells of salt and approaching night. Annalise and Elias stand on the porch, nursing mugs of tea. They are not touching, but they stand close, a comfortable silence between them. They watch the last of the light fade from the water. "My father would have loved this," Annalise says softly. Yes, Elias agrees. He would have. They stand there for a long time as the stars begin to appear, one by one, in the vast dark sky. There are no more words that need to be said. Everything is understood. It is a quiet, earned stillness. a new beginning, waiting patiently in the silence.